Good morning, Doctor. Welcome back.
Good morning, Venkatesh. Nice to be back.
Thank you. So our topic for today is be pragmatic. And the reason why we put this as part of our series on wellness, especially positive wellness, where we can sort of do actions to improve our wellness, is many things in life have obstacles in them. That's an absolute reality. We want to do something, we are passionate about something, but there are obstacles, there are difficulties, there are frustrations. Unless we learn how to take them in our stride and find a way through, which is what being pragmatic is about, and take action, we tend to get stressed and frustrated with some idealistic view of the world. And that's why it's part of our series, right? So that's why we are going to discuss how to be pragmatic. Yes, Doctor, over to you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Venkatesh. The word pragmatic, like many other words in science and technology, is derived from Greek. The word Greek. Yeah, there you are. The word in Greek is pragma.
Yeah.
Pragma is, again, next slide, please. Pragma stands for what? You see, definition of pragma.
Correct.
The word pragmatism is derived from the Greek word pragma.
Right.
And the Greek word pragma
is from action.
Yeah, it's based on action. It denotes action, which is
Correct.
a very favorite topic of Venkatesh, because he's all the time talking about action and action and action. And here it is.
Or rather, you are talking about it. That's why I'm talking about it. Yes,
good,
absolutely.
Good to talk about action, karma. No?
Correct.
It is
Correct.
Bhagavad Gita and Greek
Correct.
and Bhagavad Gita mixed.
Correct.
So the Greek pragma, meaning action, from which the words pragmatism and pragmatic come. And by the way, the word practical, which is the more commonly used English word, is also derived from the same root, pragma. So, but if you say practical, it is taken as a little, oh, okay. But if you say pragmatism, you say, oh my God, the reaction of the listener is, depending on the usage of the word.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that the words are not understood. They are understood, but in the context of who is using it, comes the emphasis. Now, the word pragmatic has an emphasis. It has a weightage. It has a seriousness which the word practical doesn't have. Although, let me repeat, the Greek origin is the same for both. So, next slide, please.
Now, you mean this one, Doctor, by any chance? Did you mean this slide or the...
Yeah, it's okay.
Let's take this one. Yeah, let's discuss this.
Yeah, right. Now, if you see in this Venn diagram or whatever diagram it is, there are three elements that go to make pragmatism.
Right.
One is, number one, passion. You have to be passionate about something. And otherwise, you can't be doing a thing proper and in balanced and appropriately in the context that is required. Passion. And then the next one is challenge. Somebody has to challenge you, or some instinct has to challenge you to do things and do things properly. And pragmatism is derived from that.
Right.
Now, challenge, that adds to the weightage of the word pragmatism, as we just now saw. Correct. And the next word that you see here is trust. Right. Somebody is trusting you with something, and that word trust is built in with the challenge and passion. You have the passion and you face the challenge and you work with the trust that's expected of you. So this is a this is a little elaborate description of the word pragmatism or pragmatic, but it conveys three things in one word. Like you can see, three in one: passion, challenge, and trust. That's very important if you want to be successful in life, or if you want to be successful in anything. You have to be passionate about it, and you have to face the challenge, and you have to trust yourself, trust the instinct, and then there you are, pragmatic. Next slide.
Yeah. A thought here, I'll just maybe connect this to what we just discussed. Like we said at the very beginning, pragmatism, and you are talking about, practical versus pragmatic, or sort of pragmatism, and why pragmatism holds that sort of higher weight, right? Is because it actually embodies the approach which takes into account all three, right? You have to have something you're passionate about, like you just said, but there are inevitably challenges. And unless you are able to navigate those challenges with faith or trust that you will overcome them, you can get frustrated very easily. I guess is the point I wanted to make. And why pragmatism is the best way to keep moving forward. It allows you to sort of maintain your passion and maintain your faith to overcome the challenges. That's how I see it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very true. So an extension of this, the word pragmatism is the practical key to thriving in professional and personal life. Now, in corporate world, you see this, you come across this word pragmatism much more often than practical. Because as I said, there's an aura of sophistication in the word pragmatic. And it also implies the compounded interplay of concepts and words. This we saw passion in work. So this is a practical way to move ahead, particularly in the corporate world, to repeat. And that's the reason why the word corporate world uses pragmatic mostly in place of practical for the sophistication.
In place of practical. Correct. Absolutely.
Next slide, please.
I think, however, it's important, Doctor, to maybe also discuss that it's as true in personal life, right? That if you are not pragmatic, for example, about your marriage, people have some idealistic rose-tinted view of how marriage might be, or how it'll be all fun and love to have a child, and then it'll be very interesting, or to have a pet. But everything has challenges, right? And unless you are pragmatic, you can't play your role properly, even in personal life. It's not only about professional, it's even personal.
True, true. Yeah. Whether personal or marital or office or otherwise.
Right.
The same principles apply in behavior. No, if you are a guy who is pragmatic in office, he can't be non-pragmatic at home, and vice versa. Because the basic principles remain, and they alone will decide your outcome of your personality or
progress. Progress in what you do.
Right. So pragmatic passion is something that we can keep as a key operative word. You are pragmatic, and so you are passionate. You are passionate, and therefore you are pragmatic. So this is a changeable dual word of the power of what we call as pragmatic passion. And of course, there are any number of HR executives and HR professionals who will tell you 5 common sense, 3, this, 4. They attach a number to everything. If you want to be successful in marriage, you do the 4 things, your marriage will work, like that. It doesn't really happen that way, that easily. Life cannot be reduced to numbers. But it is important to have the numbers in front of you so that you are keeping track of where you are in the complex chess game of life. So pragmatic passion is very appropriate, and it is useful.
Right.
Next, please.
Yeah. An important point here, Doctor, that I think needs making is that many people see pragmatism and passion not as linked, but as opposites. That if you're passionate, you're not pragmatic. And you can't be pragmatic, you have to be idealistic. Or if you're pragmatic, you have no passion. You're a cold-blooded, non-passionate person. And I guess the point here is really that both are needed. To make your passion come true, you need to be pragmatic enough. And we'll discuss what that means. Yeah. Here's what it is. Yeah.
We will soon see a diagram which is dealing with the same points that Venkatesh had mentioned. That is coming down the line. And we will see it presently. Now, in love, for example, we just now, Venkatesh mentioned the pragmatism of life and pragmatism of love. And somebody has distilled the pragmatic aspects of love like this. It is driven by the head and not by the heart. Now, this is something. If you are only driven by the head, you will never fall in love. That is one way of saying that. So all the time. For example, you see a very powerful theater personality or a cinematic personality. And he's very handsome, very robust, and very everything. He doesn't get married. And I don't have the name. The name is right in front of you. And he doesn't get married. He is now touching 60 because he is pragmatic. He's far too pragmatic to be in love. So here you see a very contradictory interpretation of the word. But it is important. At the most, for ordinary mortals like you and me, you have to have both. You cannot be pragmatic all the time, using the word pragmatic in that sense. Very strict, mechanical, rhythmic kind of life. And the romantic one, which is, where people dancing around the trees and, smooching each other with whatever.
Right.
So it requires a balance, like as balance is the essence of our life. And of course, in addition to this, head versus heart, the college debates are held, by you marry by love or marry by whatever,
By
uh,
head. Correct.
love in head or your love, love in heart. Such funny little interpretations are there, but they are useful in stimulating our thinking in a particular direction that is required of you at that moment. So you can't be of the head all the time or the heart all the time, but you need both. And when and how you decide and you have to implement. That's right.
Correct.
And
No,
there are
it's a
other things
very,
like, yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, no problem.
No, it's a very important point. Actually, the word love need not be only about marriage or about, it can be love for something like a concept, it can be love for anything. But marriage is a good place because all of us understand it. For example, in the Indian context, we have arranged marriage, right? And, typically the notion is arranged marriage is all by the head. Parents are deciding, considerations are being used to see matching and all of that. And yet, love has to develop. So, what starts with the head, you have to bring heart into it, right? Vice versa, there are people who get married for love in their minds, but they quickly have to become practical about how to make the relationship work, how to make all the practical aspects work. So whether you start with the head or you start with the heart, finally you need to have a combination of both, right? And whether arranged marriage or love marriage, both seem to show that very clearly to us in our day-to-day lives.
Right. So the plateau phase of love in the middle age, is a real good teacher. It teaches you your head and heart both. And not be carried away by one, and so forth. Pragmatism is nothing without imagination. We can ignore this because in our context we will reinterpret it in our own way. Pragmatism is nothing without imagination, and imagination is wasted without pragmatism. Okay, it's a good words, but doesn't take us far. And just a little earlier we saw how pragmatism and love and head and heart and all play together. And rightly so, it's required. So if you are looking at a successful marriage, the marriage should be successful not just at the honeymoon phase, but it should be successful throughout. Till your middle age and old age and till you go to the grave and so forth. So it's an interplay of emotions and logic, that's required. And pragmatism tells you that. Pragmatism is making you more and more pragmatic without losing your, without losing your hold on the ground, and so forth. So next slide, please.
This is a good point, Doctor, because I think we have not exactly finally explained pragmatism itself. I think one of the important points is, I think what we mean by pragmatism, and it's a good place to talk about, is accepting the minor or major differences between what we thought would happen and what is in reality, right? And keep finding a way to move forward. So I think, of course, marriage is a very good example, but let's take another, like hobbies we have discussed, right? Or let's say somebody like, you have written books and you sit down with an idea, I want to write this book. But when you're writing it, you'll face n number of challenges, right? Either you get bored or you're not inspired on a given day or you don't find material. Then you have to finally either slightly change the topic or you have to find material somehow that suits, or you have to somehow keep going when you're not feeling particularly interested. And all of those are the action orientation and pragmatism. So this imagination is wasted without pragmatism. There are many good examples, and actually it's one of the most important points around pragmatism, right? Why pragmatism and passion seem to be opposites is because of exactly this point.
Right. In this context, I am reminded of what Ravi Shankar said once. The sitarist, Bharat Ratna Ravi Shankar.
Sitarist,
many times he lands in a flight from New York down to Coimbatore. And then he's too tired, he doesn't feel inspired to create music. But then the audience is waiting down there. And if you don't perform, they'll kill you. So you have to bring yourself to action. And you start focusing on action. That is when you don't allow your mood to overtake you. You define your purpose and then you bring in pragmatism, and then your first note of Shadja or Gandhar will come. And that is where if you only have a pragmatic mindset, mindset has to be pragmatic. And there are many such examples where you don't feel like doing something, but you are drawn to doing it for various reasons of circumstance and compulsion. So the, there are many such examples. And you have, this is where the author had said, the art and science of life, where pragmatism meets purpose. And that's where magic happens. So at the middle of the night when Ravi Shankar plays Rag Malkaus, everything has to blend. Otherwise, music cannot happen. And your critics are waiting out there to catch you and thrash you or something like that.
Correct. It is absolutely the sweet spot, like you said, between practicality and passion. You have to get down to the nitty-gritty of how to perform, right? Absolutely.
Right. Next slide, please.
I guess this is very filled with words. It might be difficult for you to see, but since you chose it, I put it up. I guess this is a repetition of much of what we have said.
Correct. So there's a gentleman by name John Dewey, considered as father of pragmatism, but everybody is father of pragmatism in his or her own way. So no single person has a monopoly over the word pragmatism. As somebody said, whatever you see, wisdom and stupidity. Wisdom and stupidity are nobody's monopoly. So pragmatism is nobody's monopoly. So
I think one important line in this sort of many lines of text here, which maybe is why you chose this, is the unique point not made yet is pragmatism is actually an attitude. It's a frame of mind. So somewhere in the middle there, that's the line. So it's literally about actually using it as a philosophy to guide what you do, which is about, I think overall, like we've been discussing, it's about take action, right? Keep taking action. And that's the only way to serve your purpose or to feed your passion. And it's a very good philosophy. It's a good place to actually maybe to discuss before we go on. Even, for example, in other arenas, I think I mentioned it in another situation. So Abraham Lincoln, who was the president of the United States during the Civil War, which was fought over the concept of slavery, right? So this fighting over slavery to many people today seems like a very idealistic thing, that it was fought over the ideals of whether somebody should be a slave or not. There were many practical aspects to it, and people were very, polarized on it. But one of the important things Abraham Lincoln said is, which is completely about pragmatism. Many people saw him as someone who was, all the time wheeling and dealing with both sides. And he said, there is no point having an ideal if you don't know how to achieve it. And the only way to achieve it is through compromise and to continuously taking some action that will move you forward. And so that was actually a pragmatic thing, right? What he said was a pragmatic.
Right.
To the point around pragmatic versus practical.
Yeah, we have already touched upon this. So it's the mix and balance, mix and match thing. This is the one I was trying to come to when Venkatesh came in with that interpretation.
Right.
And I used to use this, and I used to prepare for exams. I have a problem ahead of me. You have option A, you have option B, plan A, plan B. Now you have to be pragmatic or idealistic. Now, if you are waiting for the best spouse that you can have in the world, so you keep looking for the best spouse, and it happened in my own relative. He kept on postponing everything as he wanted to be idealistic. He was expecting the ideal wife and idealistic marriage. It didn't happen. It was not going to happen anyway till the cows come home and go back to the field or something. So you have to mix and match pragmatism and idealism. Now the word idealism is used in a multifaceted manner. And if you say idealism, then what exactly is ideal? Then we can go off in a tangent. But then if you are only pragmatic, your idealism is gone, and vice versa. And this is manifested over a period of time. It is important to note that time plays a very vital role in this. Now, you start off with a very idealistic approach toward life. And by the time you reach the middle age, you come to terms with your own pragmatism, and you'll say, okay, my wife is not so pretty, but I need her, like that. So it's a very different way of middle age kind of a thing. Pragmatism and idealism playing the balancing act. and particularly visible in the middle age. And there are examples and examples. There are midlife crises and all that. If you don't know how to handle this, you have a midlife crisis. You don't know, you're expecting pragmatism, it didn't happen. You're expecting idealism, didn't happen, and so forth. So,
very important point, doctor. Very important.
Yeah.
Yes. I guess the arrow in this diagram, seems to mean it could actually be flipped, and it would maybe likely be even more important. This seems to move from pragmatic to idealistic, but for many of us in life, it's the vice versa, right? Like you said, we start with idealistic notions and move towards pragmatism.
Pragmatism, that's right. Very true. So there are certain quotes which we can share. Aldous Huxley, the man who wrote the Brave New World, fiction or imagination, whatever you call it, reality. But he said, dream in a pragmatic way. Dream by definition need not be pragmatic. It's a very contradictory word, but it is there. It is relevant. Our mind is full of contradictions anyway. And you don't expect to manage to be pragmatic. You don't expect to manage to be idealistic. But you mix it up. And
that's true of that's even true of careers, right? Many people, when they are children or when they are teenagers, say, what do you want to do? I don't know what I love doing. And actually, even to your Ravi Shankar point, right? There are people who dream of being cricketers, dream of being artists. The only guys who are able to do that are the people who know that you have to do all the grunt work of everyday riyaz or everyday net practice. And that is not at all, it doesn't fit with the joy of just playing for a day or whatever. So unless you can, even the seemingly very interesting or passionate dreams of like, I want to go become a movie star, there is all the practical reality of how to sustain, waiting for your break. Absolutely.
Right. Somebody said he was having a dreamy-eyed view of cinema. And when he was struggling, there was no taxi available at that particular place. And he had to walk half a kilometer to catch a taxi. And that was the time he realized moviedom or stardom is only, can't be starry-eyed. You have to be practical. You have to catch a train or something, and there is no conveyance around. So you live it through. And that's why you see people, the struggling artists, sleep by the roadside and so forth. What's required?
And actually, it's a very important point in many things because, whether it is, for example, has been famously said about Amitabh Bachchan at the peak of his career. We were discussing it on one of our walks. He would do 8 movies at a time with extreme professionalism, never be late, always knew his lines for all 8 movies, sometimes have shootings for 3 or 4 of them on the same day. So there were maybe other artists who, were as talented, but nobody was, and of course there is luck, but there was nobody who was able to keep his head as much as his heart in what he was doing, right? And true of, Sachin Tendulkar, we have discussed it in the context of Sachin Tendulkar versus Kamli and so on. All about pragmatism, making you action oriented. Yes.
Right. Very true. Next slide, please. Now, the single operative word, the most powerful word in the universe is work. It's most powerful. You call it karma, you call it by any other name. You open the thesaurus and you'll find 20 different words. Work is worship, is that proverb. The proverb says, you work, you are worshipping. You are worshipping whom? God. Okay, God means what? God is worship and work is worship. You can go round and round and not being very clear as to what is God and what is work. And but they are the same. The two sides of the same coin. And that's what is there. That's a key element of pragmatism. Be pragmatic. You build all the variables into your hypotheses, and then you keep working. You don't stop working because it's raining heavily or shining very hard. But then you keep at it. And that is your worship, that is your God. Now, this is there in pragmatism. If you are trying to analyze pragmatism or to equate pragmatism with something more tangible, it all boils down to work, and work. The 4-letter word. The 4-letter words are supposed to be bad, but here is one good 4-letter word. So that brings us back to the traditional Gita analogy. Do you want to say something, Venkatesh?
No. Please go ahead. Perfect. This brings us to the perfect spiritual concept that underlies it. Yes, doctor.
Yeah. Now, this Bhagavad Gita says, keep working.
Correct.
Keep acting and keep working. Keep performing your karma without attachment. Yogastha karmani. Karma is karma. Yogastha means you are stationed in yoga. What is the station in yoga? Your mind, body, and soul must be stationed in the very concept of yoga. Without you cannot perform. You cannot perform to the best efficient way. No, unless you are in yoga, whether you are Sachin Tendulkar hitting a square drive or something, or anybody else, he is focused on karma. And his mind and body are situation in yoga. Yoga, so yoga staha is to be stationed, be placed. And if you are placing yourself in your karma, that is yoga, and so forth. Many of us realize this later in life again, because when you, in the earlier part of your life, you are anxious about the outcome. You say, I want this, I want that, the prettiest wife, I want the biggest company, biggest chair in the office, etc., etc. And as you said, when you change from idealism to expediency, ultimately it boils down to expediency. And that is a form of yoga. So yogastha kuru karmani, establish yourself in the present moment and perform action. This is Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna Bhagwan's advice, which we don't realize is valid even at the age of 20. We wait for the age of 70 to realize this, and so forth. So that is yoga. Is yoga. Any comment on Venkatesh?
No, absolutely. And I guess it is at the heart of pragmatism. As I guess you started off with the very first page, that it is the same as karma yoga, action. You can't do it without being in the present moment, and being obsessed with either the outcomes is basically living in the future, or being regretful is living in the past. So the only way to do your task is living in the present moment, and that actually unlocks you to do a lot of things, right? It frees you to keep working. Which brings us to the last slide. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the last slide, which Swami Vivekananda's interpretation of karma yoga. And Swami Vivekananda said, his guru Ramakrishna Paramahamsa guided him. Once he realized that he is nearing perfection or moksha, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, don't be like other munis and rishis. Don't run to the Himalayas and stay in a corner and waiting for people to give you the next meal. So he said, be a man of action. Again, action, action, action. Venkatesh's favorite word. But it should be our favorite word, our favorite mantra, if you like. Keep acting. If you're in trouble, act. If you are happy, act. If you are neither, act. So you Atmanaha mokshartham. This is what Vivekananda said. Atmanaha means oneself. Moksha is liberation. So you work for your own liberation of your soul. At the same time, don't forget the goodness of the world. Jagat hita. Jagat is world. Hita is good. Atmanaha mokshartham. So Vivekananda boiled down to two elements of karma yoga and pragmatism again. His own word of pragmatism is again Atmanaha mokshartham and Jagat hitaya. And all this blend into you make you a better human being, more effective, more
resilient.
Yeah, exactly. More everything that you can imagine in adjective. So that is what you have to strive at. And this is a continuous process again. Karma yoga doesn't end simply because you cross 45 and so forth. And karma yoga doesn't begin, it can go on. The interpretation or interpretability of Bhagavad Gita's karma yoga is so vast. So vast. There is Armana, Mokshartham, and Jagat Hitaya at every stage of life. So this is my way of looking at it, Venkatesh.
Perfect.
And,
so I'll summarize. I'll just summarize as always and then close. So I think today what we discussed was the very important role of pragmatism in maintaining our balance in life and continuously being both productive and therefore happy. What is pragmatism? It's all about being action-oriented in the face of challenges. We normally act when we either have purpose or we have a passion for something. But the problem is that we face some or the other challenge. We tend to get frustrated. We have an idealistic view of how things should proceed, and we can get disheartened. Pragmatism, by just focusing us on action in the present moment, which is actually enjoined by the Bhagavad Gita, as we just discussed, in, basically doing your karma in the present moment, is all about just saying your passion is sustained, not negated by being just focused on action. Some people may think expediency is opposite to passion, or being practical or pragmatism or pragmatic, or all of that equates to being very cold-blooded or driven only by the head. But honestly, it is the only sustainable way to actually keep your passion alive, keep your purpose alive, and keep moving forward. Yeah. So that's it for today. Look forward to the next one, Doctor. Thank you so very much for this session.
Thank you. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.